series. Today, we will talk about the Himalayan Triangle, India, Tibet, and China. Until 1950, Tibet was an independent country. Tibet has its own flag, own army, own currency, own stamp, and it shares good international relations with the fellow countries. And Tibet is a beautiful place, a paradise to be precise. It enjoys an altitude of 5,000 meters, and even the Mount Everest is in Tibet. Tibet has many glaciers and is a source of many rivers like Indus, Brahmaputra, which is a lifeline of around 1.8 billion people in South and Southeast Asian countries. Now, in 1950, Mao Zedong, the communist leader of China, in order to fulfill his imperialist ambition, he decided to occupy Tibet. His army marched into the territory of independent Tibet, and what followed after is a complete bloodshed. Thousands of Tibetan soldiers and citizens, they lost their life. Now, in order to prevent more bloodshed, the Tibetan government and Chinese government, they decided to sign a peace treaty. But it's more like it came to be known as 17-point agreement, but it's more like an agreement which was imposed on Tibetan leaders, and they had to sign it under the gunpoint. Under that agreement, the region which China has occupied, the region of Tibet which China has occupied, became an integral part of China, and the small portion became Tibetan Autonomous Region, but China still hold an authority over that region. Now, what followed after is nothing less than a Holocaust. Thousands, millions, around 10 million people of Tibet were killed. Their culture was targeted. 6,000 monasteries were destroyed. The cultural artifacts of Tibet school of thought, Tibet Buddhist school of thought, was destroyed. Now, to speak more about it, we have with us two of the prominent activists of Free Tibet movement. We have with us the youngest MP of Tibetan Parliament in exile, Ms. Lhagyari Namgyal Dolkar. She has served as the president of Gu Chusam movement of Tibet, and it helped families of Tibetan activists, political prisoners, and their families in exile. She's also the youth leader in the Tibetan freedom movement. Also, we have with us Mr. Tenzin Sandhu. Mr. Tenzin Sandhu is a Tibetan poet and writer. He is the author of 4 books of poetry and stories. And he's one of the, I would say, most jailed poet in India because for his activism in Tibetan freedom struggle. He's based out of Dharamshala. Now, I would hand over the stage to Mr. Tenzin Sandhu to speak more about this illegal annexation of China, the life of people in Tibet, and the resource exploitation of China in Tibet. Firstly, I welcome you all, and thanks for being with us today. And over to you, Tenzin ji.
मेरा नमस्कार, मैं अभी धर्मशाला में हूँ, तो यहाँ से बहुत सारे लोगों को जोड़ा हूँ इंटरनेट के माध्यम से, और सत्याग्रह ये टॉक सीरीज अंकित जी ये होस्ट कर रहे हैं, और सोशलिस्ट पार्टी ऑफ इंडिया ये पूरा मैनेज कर रहे हैं. तो आप सबको मेरा नमस्कार. Firstly, I'll make a slide presentation. I have a series of pictures and maps to show, to talk about Tibet. Because when we talk about Tibet, a country most of us have not been to, so it's difficult to imagine a country which is so big, you know, it's like 2/3 the size of India and 1/5 the size of China, and so very far because it is beyond the Himalayas, although it's just here. But that's a place most people have not been to. So it's difficult to imagine, and especially under Chinese occupation. So I'm going to use a series of maps and pictures to talk about it. And of course, Namgyal Dolkar will follow me with her comments on what is happening in Tibet today, the situation there, and the exile scenario also. And later, if you have any questions and comments, we can discuss. So I'm going to go to my presentation. So, when we talk about Tibet, we immediately think about the Dalai Lama, we think about the Buddha, because 99% of Tibetans are Buddhist. But when we talk about Tibet, we need to look at the map. This is a Google Earth map where we see Tibet right at the center of Asia. There is India on the southern part of the Himalayas, and beyond Tibet, the entire region is Tibet. And in between Tibet and India, there is Nepal, Bhutan, and all across the Himalayas, the Indian population, people in the Himalayas. So that actually becomes a natural border. And that's a border which had always been between Tibet and India. And China had never been part of the Himalayas ever in history. Today, because China has occupied Tibet, we are now seeing China across the border. And जो गलवान वैली में हुआ वो इसलिए हुआ कि चाइना ने तिब्बत के ऊपर कब्जा किया, और जब चाइना ने तिब्बत के ऊपर कब्जा किया, इंडिया ने तिब्बत चीन के हिस्सा मान लिया, और क्योंकि तिब्बत चीन के हिस्सा मान लिया तो चीन तिब्बत में बैठे रहे, और आज तिब्बत से इंडिया के ऊपर घूर के देख रहे हैं, और वहां से चीन की सेना भेज रहे हैं, हमारे सेना के साथ झड़प होते हैं. So this is the situation right in the center of Asia. Tibet is 4,000 meters above sea level. It's the biggest plateau, an area of 2.5 million square kilometer of land. Tibet is one country where there are some of the most beautiful blue lakes that have been originated from snow melt water. And then there is the imagination of India of Tibet is Mount Kailash. Look at this. This is Mount Kailash, is also considered by many people the center of the earth. And this is in Tibet. Kailash Manasarovar. Tibet is a country where there are 9 months of winter and there is so much of snow. So therefore, Tibet is also considered the third pole because of the amount of snow and the source of fresh drinking water. So besides the two poles on the south and north pole, Tibet is considered the third pole, the sources of drinking water. Tibetans are the first warriors who rode horses and who used bows and arrows, and they conquered the Asian world. So till about 9th and 10th century, Tibetans were the warriors who ruled Central Asia. So they ruled over Mongolia, they ruled over China, they ruled over Manchuria, and a certain part of the Tibetan Empire extended even down the south of Himalayas into Ladakh and Arunachal and all these places. But once the Tibetans embraced Buddhism, the empire building stopped. And therefore, for Tibetans, the idea of development was the inner development, development of your kindness and compassion. So landscape like this, blue lakes, is all across Tibet. 99% of Tibetans are Buddhist. Now, when we look at the people's lifestyle and occupation, 60 to 70% of Tibetans are nomads. They live with their animals, yaks and sheep. And although from southern part of the Himalayas, when we look at Tibet, we see it so very high beyond the Himalayas. But once you reach Tibet, it's plain, because the entire region is plateau. Once you reach there, there are kilometers of grasslands. So nomads live among the animals in this way. So Tibetans actually live the most luxurious and rich life of both spiritual and cultural practice, and the life of nomads and farmers, and a certain number of monks and nuns. It's huge in the Tibetan community. This is an exemplary Tibetan architecture. Yaks is the main important animal in Tibet, and it's found mainly in Tibet, in the periphery of Tibet, of course, but Tibet is the main habitat of yaks. Yak is the male and female is dri. So some people make the mistake of saying yak milk. No, you have to say dri milk, dri, D-R-I, dri. You have to say dri milk. Now, right in the capital of Tibet is Lhasa, L-H-A. Lhasa is the capital, and this is the Patala Palace, the majestic Patala Palace, the highest building in Tibet. And even today, this building still stands. This was originally built from 7th century, Songtsen Gampo, the most important leader who united Tibet and created Tibet as the largest country at that time. And this is a recent picture of the Patala Palace. This is a building that hosts a parliament, the palace of the Dalai Lama, a school. This building also has a state treasury. This also has state armory, and also has a prison in the lower part of the palace. So this marvel from 7th century is existing even today. This is a picture of a school where I studied when I was in primary school. So Tibetan refugees, when they first came from Tibet in 1959 and 1960, since then they've been living in India as refugees. Even today we do. We used to follow, even today it's the same, follow CBSE curriculum, and we study Hindi also. So जिस तरीके से जितना मैं हिंदी बोल पाया हूँ वो इसलिए है कि 8वीं कक्षा तक हमने हिंदी पढ़े, तो हिंदी पढ़ना लिखना और कविता सुनाना ऐसा हम स्कूल में पढ़े थे. तो ये मेरा स्कूल है. जब मैं प्राइमरी स्कूल में, मैं 5वीं कक्षा में मैं इसी स्कूल में पढ़ा. और जब तिब्बती लोग पहली बार इंडिया आए तो हम लोग रेफ्यूजीज थे. और ये देखो, ये इस पिक्चर में बुजुर्ग लोग या बच्चे सब लोग तिब्बती ड्रेस पहने हैं. तो उनको बहुत ही मुश्किल लगा इंडिया आने में, क्योंकि यहाँ बहुत गर्मी है. तिब्बत के लोग ये 4000 मीटर अबव सी लेवल ऐसी जगह में रहने वाले हैं, और 9 मंथ्स की विंटर होते हैं वहाँ. और इनको पहली बार तिब्बत के बाहर आना और यहाँ की रहन सहन से बहुत मुश्किल रहा, खास करके इंडिया की समर. तो हजारों लोग ऐसे रह नहीं पाए और बहुत सारे अलग अलग बीमारी से ऐसे करके मर गए. लेकिन किसी तरह से हमारे कैंप जिंदा रहा और हमारी उम्मीद बनाए रखे. भारत सरकार ने हमको ये शरण दिया, इसीलिए तिब्बती लोग पूरी कोने में आज जहां भी तिब्बती है, हम सब भारत सरकार और लोगों को बहुत आभारी मानते हैं. जबकि ये अलग बात है कि ज्यादातर लोग भारतीय लोगों को पता भी नहीं है कि इंडिया में 1 लाख तिब्बती आज भी शरण लिए हुए आजादी की उम्मीद में आज भी हैं. तो ये मेरा एक हमारा परिवार है. ये छोटा सामने जो खड़े हैं वो मैं हूँ. जब मैं शायद 2री या 3री कक्षा में एक फोटो हुए थे, उसकी है. अब मैं थोड़ा पॉलिटिकल सिचुएशन बताता हूँ. ये एक मैप है, चाइना एंड इट्स ऑक्युपाइड कंट्रीज. नाउ व्हेन वी सी चाइना, हम अक्सर बोलते हैं ना चाइना मतलब एक बहुत बड़ा देश, लेकिन हमें ये पता नहीं है कि चाइना मतलब रियली एक छोटा देश है. इन्होंने मंचूरिया के ऊपर कब्जा किया, सदर्न मंगोलिया के ऊपर कब्जा किया, ईस्ट तुर्किस्तान उगुर कंट्री के ऊपर कब्जा किया, और तिब्बत के ऊपर कब्जा करने के बाद वो चाइना जो है आज जितना बड़ा दिख रहा है, वो सब इसलिए है क्योंकि चाइना ने 60% आज की चाइना के टेरिटरी है वो उन्होंने कब्जा किए हुए हैं, बाकी का 40% जो है वो सिर्फ चाइना है। ये ज्यादातर लोगों को पता नहीं है। तो मैं ये समझाना चाहता हूं कि चाइना ने अपने कब्जा किए हुए देशों में से पहले ये है, ये ब्लू कलर में है ईस्ट तुर्किस्तान, जो कि पूरी एरिया जो है वो 18 लाख स्क्वायर किलोमीटर है, उतना बड़ा एरिया है। और आपने आजकल न्यूज में भी देखे होंगे, ये वो देश हैं जहां सबसे ज्यादा लोग हैं, उइगर लोग हैं वहां, ज्यादातर लोग मुस्लिम हैं, लेकिन उनके ऊपर कब्जा करके उनके ऊपर शोषण कर रहे हैं। और आज आपने न्यूज में भी सुने होंगे कि करीब 10 लाख लोग उनके कंसंट्रेशन कैंप्स में डाले हैं। उनकी सोच विचार बदलने की कोशिश, उनकी कल्चर संस्कृति बदलने की कोशिश, ऐसे शोषण कर रहे हैं। और ईस्ट तुर्किस्तान चाइना, आज चाइना ईस्ट तुर्किस्तान से नेचुरल गैस और ऑयल वहां से चाइना लेके जाते हैं और वहां के लोगों के ऊपर शोषण करते हैं। और दूसरी कंट्री जो चाइना के कब्जे में है वो है सदर्न मंगोलिया। अब इतिहास में हमने मंगोलिया के बारे में किसने नहीं सुना है ना। मंगोलिया मतलब इतना सबसे बड़ा देश, दिस मंगोलिया वाज द बिगेस्ट military power in the world, and under Genghis Khan and Kublai Khan, they ran the Mongolian Empire for almost about 300 years. And आज लेकिन दुर्भाग्य से वो मंगोलिया दो हिस्से में बढ़ गए हैं। ये जो चाइना के कब्जे में है उसको बोलते हैं सदर्न मंगोलिया। द अदर कंट्री विच इज आउटसाइड सदर्न मंगोलिया, विच इज फ्री एंड इंडिपेंडेंट, it's Mongolia as such, and Ulaanbaatar is the capital. So southern Mongolia is a country of 11 lakh square kilometer of land which is under Chinese occupation today. And then is Manchuria. अभी आज हम भारत में कहीं जगह जाएंगे, किसी को नहीं में जाएंगे, सब लोग ये जो चाइनीज फूड खाते हैं ना, चाइनीज मंचूरियन फूड, वो वाला मंचूरियन फूड है वो इस प्रदेश से है, मंचूरिया ने चाइना के ऊपर कब्जा किया और मंगोलिया पर भी कब्जा किया, और मंचूरिया ने अपने प्रदेश बनाया बहुत बड़ा। Manchuria was one of the biggest naval power. They ruled over China and Mongolia. Today, that very Manchuria is under Chinese occupation. Until 1911, Manchuria used to rule over China. And after the Manchu Empire was dismantled and the king was toppled, Manchuria came under Chinese occupation. So Manchuria is 7,91,000 square kilometer of land, and this entire region is under Chinese occupation. And lastly, when we talk about Chinese occupation, we are talking about Tibet. Now, Tibet is 2.5 million square kilometer. As I said right in the beginning, the population of Tibetans are 6 million. So Tibet actually becomes 1/5 the size of China. So all these countries are under Chinese occupation today. Now look at this historical map where Hindustan, Tibet are shown as free and independent country, and this is a proper map of Tibet where you see the size of Nepal and Bhutan just below that, and these are the borders between Tibet and India. There are red lines over there, and that has become problematic today because China has occupied Tibet, and today China's ambition is going beyond the Himalayas into looking at India. Now, ever since China invaded Tibet, there has been destruction of Tibetan monasteries, religion, culture, people, population. Almost about 1 million Tibetans were killed by the Chinese invasion. And sadly, when we asked for help from United States, United Nations, UK, India, none of them supported Tibet because all of them thought that China is going to be a big economic, political, military power. So they thought it is better to be friends with China. And from India, Indian first Prime Minister Nehru also looked at China as a possible friendship, and therefore Hindi चेनी bye bye वो सब शुरू हुआ. लेकिन आज देखो तो हमें पता चल रहा है कि वो वाला पॉलिसी आज इंडिया के लिए बहुत भारी पड़ रहा है। और शुरुआत से अगर हम चाइना से एक ऐसा दूरी रखते कि वो भले वो आजाद देश के रूप में उभर के आए, लेकिन तिब्बत और भारत के वो जो पहले पुराने रिश्ते वो बनाए रखते, तो शायद वो संतुलन बैठते। लेकिन तिब्बत चीन की हिस्सा मान लिया भारत ने, और चीन से दोस्ती करने की कोशिश, लेकिन वो दोस्ती आज बने नहीं है, और इसलिए बहुत मुश्किल हो गया। अब तिब्बत में ऐसे whenever people go out and protest, the Chinese brutally clamp down on the protesters. They shoot them dead right in the middle of the street like this. These are real pictures of Tibetans inside today. So there is no freedom, there's no freedom of speech. The entire country is under Chinese military occupation to a point that people are today burning themselves. 155 Tibetans have burned themselves in self-immolation, calling for freedom of Tibet and return of His Holiness the Dalai Lama. It's a very, very difficult military state, to a point you cannot imagine a country where there is absolutely no freedom and people are clamped down with military force. And therefore, the Patala Palace, which I said earlier as the symbol of Tibet, today is reminded constantly with this Chinese red flag right in the front. Most of the Tibetans, as I said, are nomads, but even today, nomads are being resettled down into small artificial villages, and Tibetans are losing their nomadic land, so that Tibetans are losing the land. Chinese are bringing in Chinese laborers to mine in Tibet. So they are bombing mountains and grasslands to mine lithium and rare earth, taking them to China. And these are, look at this picture, these are artificial villages where Tibetan nomads who have always lived freely on the grasslands, today are being put into such artificial villages where there are matchbox kind of houses, and Tibetans are put in that, and the land is taken away by the Chinese. Trees are cut, and therefore there are massive floods that are happening in southern part of Tibet, and also in Assam and Guwahati and in that northeast part. It's all mainly because China is mining and building dams wherever they want, and such kind of destructions are happening. So such rampant mining is happening, and therefore concerns of Tibet is not just about Tibetan people, but all over the Asia. Look at this map, the last map I'm showing you. The plateau of Tibet, the last storehouse of fresh drinking water, is the headland for all the important rivers that are flowing into Pakistan and India, Nepal, Bhutan, Bangladesh, Burma, Laos, Cambodia, Vietnam, and China. So all these Asian countries, all of them, they receive water. So therefore, Tibet as a land is such an important place, and more the reason to protect Tibetan freedom, because this is the area which is going to be a major conflict. Because today, if people are fighting for oil, tomorrow people are going to fight for natural gas, and tomorrow the fight is really about the water that is originating from there. So these are reasons why we are looking at the importance of Tibet, the land, the people, and all of this. Yeah. So now I am back. I've spoken quite a lot. So I will now request Namgyal Dolkar to make her comments, and उसके बाद हम जब भी वक्त आए हम डिस्कशन करेंगे.
Hi everyone, it's lovely speaking with everyone, and I want to thank the Socialist Party for inviting Tenzin Tsundue and I, and thank you Ankit for introducing us. Tenzin Tsundue already introduced a basic idea about the current situation in Tibet and the historical perspective on Tibet. So I don't want to go repeat everything, but then I still want to reiterate my point. For that, I'll have to go back and mention what he said already. I am, as introduced, I'm Lhagyari Namgyal Dolkar. I was born in India, in Dharamshala, and so as I've always felt that as much as the Indians have felt love and connection with India and its soil, we have as well, being born here, but our roots still remains with Tibet, and hence the responsibility that each one of us have towards Tibet and Tibetans inside Tibet who do not have the platform or opportunity or the space to raise the real situation inside Tibet. So I want to begin by mentioning that, as Tenzin Tsundue said, the current situation in India and around the world that we are in has happened because when Tibet was invaded by China, by the so-called People's Liberation Army, the world decided to ignore it. The international leadership, including India, decided that there were other important issues to be looked upon rather than the forced occupation of Tibet. And that is the reason why I've always mentioned that it's important that we should open our eyes. You know, it's never too late to speak up or do the right thing. Therefore, we have to understand, but one thing that I've noticed about China and its narrative is that they've always claimed that Tibet has always been part of China. As Tenzin Tsundue said, Tibet had never been part of China. The China that they are talking about, the sad part that if I can connect it, I've seen many historians or historical teachers, even in India, talk about Tibet as part of China. They mention about Yuan dynasty, they mention about Qing dynasty. They've said that Tibet was part of China at that time, but do they understand what China was? You know, when they're talking about Yuan dynasty, they're talking about the rule of the Mongols, you know, in the 1271 to 1282. And then the Qing dynasty they're talking about is of the Manchus. It's not of the Chinese. We're talking about a Qing dynasty when the Chinese Huns were themselves taken down by the foreign, acquisitor. So it's important that at least the teachers in India do not mix the history and do not fall for the false narrative of People's Liberation Army and the Chinese Communist Party, you know, because this is exactly what China is doing. They're coming up with this false narrative where they are trying to connect Tibet, East Turkestan, Southern Mongolia, and Manchu historically, politically, and culturally to China, and legitimize that Tibet had always been part of China. Hence, we have the entire whole authority over Tibet, and that we did nothing wrong, but did the good part to liberate the Tibetans, you know. And we have to understand also that the reason why China is now attacking India is not because of the presence of Dalai Lama or the Tibetans here in India. Because I've been hearing many a times in India, even so-called scholars mentioned that Dalai Lama की वजह से हमारे exile, Tibetan exile government की वजह से Chinese के armies आते हमारे ऊपर attack करते हैं. That's not the reality. What China is doing is, उनके हिसाब से जो अरुणाचल प्रदेश है, लद्दाख है, वो उनके ही हिस्से है. वो ये मानते हैं जो हिस्सा है लद्दाख, अरुणाचल प्रदेश, उत्तराखंड के एरिया, वो सब साउथ चाइना है. और उसी हिसाब से जैसे वो मानते हैं कि तिब्बत उनका हिस्सा है, कोई उनके नैरेटिव के हिसाब से वो मानते हैं कि वो भी उनका हिस्सा है, इसी वजह से वो यहाँ पर आते हैं. वो इसको एक फोर्स एक्विजिशन नहीं मानते. तो इट्स इम्पोर्टेंट कि इंडिया के जो लीडरशिप है, जो लोग हैं, वो इस रियलिटी को समझे और ये उनको ये जानने की जरूरत है कि चाइना इस नैरेटिव के साथ पूरे देश में उनका जो फोर्स इंपीरियलिस्ट का नेचर है वो चल रहा है उनका. क्योंकि इंडिया में हमें ये लग रहा है कि आज़ादी का दौर जो है, ब्रिटिश का इंडिया के ऊपर कब्जा करना, ये सब हमें हिस्टोरिकल बुक लगता है. बट द रियलिटी इज हम इस दौर से गुजर रहे हैं. एंड चाइना जो है उनका मेंटालिटी भी उसी दौर से गुजर रहा है और वो उन्होंने तिब्बत के ऊपर इस तुर्किस्तान सदर्न मंगोलिया अभी ताइवान में चल रहा है, हांगकांग में चल रहा है, हम सबको पता है। पर उनको लगता है कि अभी उनका गेम खत्म नहीं हुआ है। उनको लगता है कि पूरे चाइना को, जो वो मानते हैं वन चाइना को, अभी साथ में लाना है। और हमें ये पता चलना चाहिए कि वो वन चाइना अभी पूरा नहीं हुआ है। therefore हमें द गवर्नमेंट ऑफ इंडिया को स्पीक अप करनी चाहिए, एक्शन, ठोस एक्शन लेना चाहिए, डिप्लोमेटिकली लेना चाहिए, अगर हो सके तो फोर्सफुली लेना चाहिए, टू प्रोटेक्ट आवरसेल्व्स, टू प्रोटेक्ट इंडिया। तो हमें लगता है कि इट्स इम्पोर्टेंट वी अंडरस्टैंड कि चाइना कैसे काम करते हैं। पीपल्स लिबरेशन आर्मी या चाइनीज कम्युनिस्ट पार्टी जो एक देश है, बहुत सारे लोग ने मुझे पूछा है कि कम्युनिस्ट पार्टी, चाइनीज कम्युनिस्ट पार्टी और चाइनीज गवर्नमेंट क्या फर्क है? कोई फर्क नहीं है। चाइना एक पार्टी सिस्टम है जहां पर ये चाइनीज कम्युनिस्ट पार्टी ही पूरे चाइना के ऊपर रूल करते हैं और वही डिसाइड करता है कि चाइना में क्या होने वाला है, क्या नहीं होने वाला है। और उसी हिसाब से एक बहुत सिस्टमेटिक और सोफिस्टिकेटेड रूट चला हुआ है पूरे पॉपुलेशन के ऊपर, ताकि जो 8 लोग हैं और अभी जो शी जिनपिंग है, जो जब तक वो ना मरे वो चाइना के लीडर होने वाले हैं, तो जो उनके कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन में लिखा है तो वो पूरे चाइना को रूल करने वाले हैं। तो उस जो चाइना है वो कैसे काम करते हैं, हाउ डज इट वर्क, किस तरह से वो इतने स्ट्रॉन्ग बनी है पूरे विश्व में। अभी ये लग रहा है कि चाइना के बगैर हम रह नहीं सकते, चाइना के बगैर हम सरवाइव नहीं कर सकते, फाइनेंशियली हम कैसे करेंगे, किसके साथ बिजनेस करेंगे, सबको ये लगता है। पर हमें ये पता चलना चाहिए कि यही नरेटिव बोल बोल के, जो कि कभी कभी मैं सस्पेक्ट करती हूँ कि ऐसे नरेटिव है जो चाइना खुद हमें यहाँ पर पूरे विश्व में भेजता है, इंडिया में भी वो नरेटिव भेजते हैं कि चाइना के बगैर हम कैसे सर्वाइव करेंगे। वही नरेटिव की वजह से चाइना अभी एक एम्पायर बन गया है। एंड इफ वी डोंट स्टॉप राइट नाउ, इफ वी डोंट रियलाइज दिस ट्रूथ, China will easily by 2050 will become the world power, and we can't afford to do that. Diplomatically China अभी बहुत strong बन गए। हमें पता है कि उनका वेटो पावर सिक्योरिटी काउंसिल के ऊपर कैसा है। वो इसी देश की वजह से इंडिया का एंट्री सिक्योरिटी काउंसिल में नहीं हो पा रहा है। मसूद अजहर जैसे टेररिस्ट को ग्लोबल टेररिस्ट नहीं मानते हैं। क्यों? क्योंकि चाइना नहीं मानते कि वो एक टेररिस्ट है। So we have to understand how do they define Tibetans जो है, जो नॉन वायलेंट एक्टिव मूवमेंट में मानते हैं, वो हमें टेररिस्ट बुलाते हैं। His Holiness the Dalai Lama जो डायलॉग के बेस पर वो तिब्बत इशू को सॉल्व करना चाहते हैं, उनके ऊपर किस तरह का नाम से बुलाते हैं। So we have to understand कि चाइना किस तरह का गवर्नमेंट है। और एक दूसरी बात यह है कि वो सिर्फ एक कॉलोनियल इंपीरियलिस्ट, जो पीपल्स लिबरेशन आर्मी, जो उनका आर्मी है या उनका पुलिस है, उसी की वजह से सर्वाइव नहीं हो पा रहा है। वो सर्वाइव हो पा रहा है उनका एक बहुत ही इंपॉर्टेंट ऑफिस की वजह से, डिपार्टमेंट, और वो है यूनाइटेड फ्रंट वर्क डिपार्टमेंट। ये ऐसा इंपॉर्टेंट डिपार्टमेंट है जो चाइनीज कम्युनिस्ट पार्टी को बहुत स्ट्रॉन्ग बनाते हैं। अपने ही देश में उसका जो स्पाइस वगैरह है, चाइनीज यूनाइटेड फ्रंट वर्क के जो स्टाफ है, वो सिर्फ चाइना में सर्वाइव नहीं करता है, सिर्फ ऑक्युपाइड नेशन जैसे तिब्बत इस तुर्किस्तान में सर्वाइव नहीं करते, वो पूरे विश्व में है। और ये क्लियर बात है कि वो इंडिया में भी रहते हैं, उनका रूट इंडिया में भी है। अभी हमें पता है कि इस समय नेशनल न्यूज में क्या चल रहा है। That's why it's important कि हम जब बात करें, हम बहुत ही carefully step ले, क्योंकि चाइना क्या करते हैं कि वो अपने लोग भेजते हैं, they send their people, send across this false narrative। वो सिर्फ छोटी मोटी स्पाइस नहीं है। अभी जो हमें लगता है कि जो अभी what's his name, चार्ली पेंग, हमें लगता है वो छोटा सा उनका एक गेम है। उससे भी बहुत सारे हमें लगता है कि स्पाइस है जो कि कनेक्टेड हो सकता है बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट लोग के साथ, मीडिया के साथ भी है, हमें पता है। तो हमें ये लोग को एंड द गवर्नमेंट को ये याद रखना चाहिए कि अगर हमें इंडिया के सोवरेनिटी, इंटेग्रिटी और सिक्योरिटी को इम्पोर्टेंट मानते हैं तो इस तरह की नरेटिव, इस तरह का इन्फ्लुएंस को बाहर रखना चाहिए और वी हैव टू थिंक कि इंडिया को हम कैसे प्रोटेक्ट कर सकते हैं, उसको कैसे सुरक्षित रख सकते हैं। तो वो लोग जो है सिर्फ स्पाइस करके काम नहीं करते हैं। अभी पूरे दुनिया में वन थिंग दैट दे आर डूइंग इज वो अभी एजुकेशन इंस्टीट्यूट में भी घुस रहे हैं। किस माध्यम से? कन्फ्यूशियस इंस्टीट्यूट के माध्यम से। और द रियलिटी इन इंडिया इज अभी हम पता नहीं, नोबडी इज टॉकिंग अबाउट इट। इंडिया में वी ऑलरेडी हैव कन्फ्यूशियस इंस्टीट्यूट एस्टैब्लिश्ड हियर, जैसे वीआरटी यूनिवर्सिटी वेलोर में जो है, यूनिवर्सिटी ऑफ मुंबई है, लवली पब्लिक यूनिवर्सिटी जो चाइना के स्पॉन्सर कन्फ्यूशियस इंस्टीट्यूट को स्पॉन्सर करते हैं, वो सब इंडिया में बसे हुए हैं। और उनका काम क्या है? वो बुलाते हैं कि वो एक्सचेंज, कल्चर को एक्सचेंज करते हैं। इज दैट द रियलिटी? अगर ऐसी बात है तो पूरे ग्लोबल उनके ऊपर ब्लैकलैश आता क्या? अगर ऐसी बात है तो उनको जरूरत थी कि कन्फ्यूशियस इंस्टीट्यूट के नाम बदल के कुछ और नाम रखे, कोई और मास्क पहनने की जरूरत पड़ी। पर इंडिया में वो लोग अभी प्रॉस्पर हो रहा है क्योंकि nobody is talking about it. तो shouldn't we be talking about it? Shouldn't we be making them accountable? If not for the world, for India, for India's security. तो उसके बारे में हमें बात करनी चाहिए। और इंडिया की जो डिजिटल और साइबर सर्वेलेंस की बात है, thankfully government of India is already talking about it. बहुत सारे लोग को लगता है कि हम तो कॉमन लोग हैं, हमारे ऊपर क्या हो सकता है, क्या हमसे इंफॉर्मेशन ले सकते हैं? पर बहुत ही काम कर सकते हैं वो। They can do a lot of things. Tibetan एक्टिविस्ट जो है, हमें पता है कि हमारे फोन्स में कितने फिशिंग्स आते हैं, कितने मैसेजेस आते हैं, कितने वायरसेस भेजते हैं, और हम इंडिया में रहते हैं। अगर वो लोग इंडिया में इस तरह का ट्रैप भेज सकता है, I think government of India has to make sure that the Tibetan freedom activists living in India, we are secure as well. क्योंकि हम openly चाइना को चैलेंज करते हैं और वो उनको पसंद नहीं है, and India has to make sure that people here are secure, not just through the spies, through these educational institutes like Confucius Institute, but also our digital and cyber security is taken care of. So I don't want to talk a lot about these issues. I think questions आएंगे, तो मैं ये बोलना चाहूंगी कि India is currently not just under the threat of China from the border, but from everywhere. China has already established itself very strongly in India through business, through educational institute, through the spies of United Front work established here in India. So it's never too late to speak up. It's never too late to take action. Therefore, I think the closest and the most trustworthy partner that India can find in India is the Tibetans in India. Is the Dalai Lama, is the exiled Tibetan government, and our activists and non-governmental organizations like here who are dedicated for Tibet and committed to fight against Chinese Communist Party's, imperialist designs. So I request everyone to let's wake up and let's work together. It's never too late. Thank you.
Thank you, Lhagyari ji. That was indeed a passionate presentation, I would say. Personally, this particular session is quite enlightening for me because the information and especially the emotions which came out in this session can only come from a true Tibetan. Especially, I would like to congratulate Mr. Tenzin for such a beautiful presentation, because this information he became a single source of all the information. I think he has covered every aspect of Tibet, the scenic landscapes, the topography, the culture. And I really didn't know about this tree milk. I hopefully we will have this tree milk in free Tibet one day. I really want to have it. And he talked about life of Tibetan refugees in India, political situation in Tibet. And he also gave us a brief information about the Chinese land grabbing ambitions, which is not particular to Tibet, but is also related to other countries like Manchuria, Mongolia, and India. And Miss Lhagyari, she talked about the history and social and political structure and ambitions of China, the history of Tibet, especially the misconceptions the people hold about Tibet. Also, now I would request the other panelists, if they have any questions they want to ask from our Tibetan guest.
Yeah, can I ask something, Ankit?
Dr. Sandeep Pandey, please.
This question is to both Tenzin and Lhagyari. Lhagyari, am I pronouncing your name correctly? How do you
I can
pronounce?
adjust that for now. You can call me Namgyal. I think it'll
Namgyal.
be easier.
Yeah. So yeah, it was very nice to hear you, and you are really passionate speaker. I have been wondering. The Palestinian struggle is so visible in the world. Why is the Tibetan struggle not visible? And Palestinians have at least fought to have an observer status in United Nations. Is there an attempt that Tibet should be given some kind of a status at United Nations? And also, Namgyal, you are an MP. So I know that, that there is a Tibetan parliament because my friend who was the head of Tibetan Institute at Sarnath became your prime minister, Mr. Rinpoche. But how do you become an MP here in the parliament? Are you elected or are you nominated by Dalai Lama or something like that? Yeah. So answer to these two questions.
Tenzin, do you want to begin?
Okay.
I think my question was fairly easy.
संदीप जी, मैं शुरू करता हूँ कि ये जो विजिबिलिटी की बात कर रहे हैं कि पैलेस्टीनियन का उनका अलग संघर्ष है और यहाँ तिब्बती का संघर्ष चल रहा है, और इंडिया में क्या है कि तिब्बत की सोच जो है, the whole idea of Tibet, for most Indians, they feel like ये हमारे लोग हैं, हमारे आसपास में हैं, तो उसमें अलग नहीं मानते हैं. अगर आप बनारस जाएं या हरिद्वार जाएं, साधुओं को पूछो कि कैलाश पर्वत कहाँ है, तो वो बोलेंगे वो तिब्बत वर्ष में है, और भारत और तिब्बत इतिहास में हमेशा करीब करीब एक जैसे साथ में रहे हैं. So there's no the otherness about Tibet, although Tibet is all across the Himalayas beyond it and always been a free and independent country. तो एक अपनापन है भारत में, लेकिन when it comes to Palestine, the issue is completely different. It's a different people, different culture, different history. But the reason why Palestinian struggle is more visible in India, I think mostly because firstly is the media construction. Media by nature seeks either violence or money. And Palestinian freedom movement for a long time used violence, and therefore it was drawing international attention again and again. And also because their adversary, Israel, has many enemies. And therefore there were many supporters for the Palestine, even nation states supporting Palestine. In our case, the Tibetan freedom movement, although we also had a violent phase right up to 1970-71, but our adversary was always been one country who was hated in the beginning as rising communist power, and therefore we had some support in the United Nations. So issue of Tibet came at the United Nations 3 times, and 3 major resolutions were also passed, but these couldn't be practiced because from 1971 onwards, China itself became a member of the United Nations. Tibet has not been there, and China became quickly became one of these 5 security members, and from then on they never allowed any Tibet discussion in the United Nations. So factors that made Palestinian cause visible and Tibet, can't say not visible, but more an ignored issue, because India was firstly in fascination of the rise of Mao's communist power, and later after 1962, because of the war that where India was defeated, India was in a phase of denial and fear. So for a long time, India never talked about anything that is China or China related, that the issue of Tibet. So until the Tibetan regiment, Special Frontier Force, fought a winning battle at the border, defeating the Chinese PLA, until that moment, India was kind of casual about the issue of Tibet. And for the first time, Tibet issue was mentioned. There was new recognition to SFF. And now the need of Tibet as a partnership for India, because it's only political, diplomatic relationship with which India can answer China. So therefore, Tibet has now become a natural ally for India to confront China in a more meaningful way, in a more civilized manner, not in the way the Chinese used, spike clubs in Galwan Valley. So now what we see is Tibet and India are two issues. They are naturally coming together, and so therefore there is need of deeper understanding. So I'm sure Namgyal Dolkar will make her own responses to Sandeep ji.
Okay. Namaste, Sandeep ji. So my question was in regards to my position as Member of Parliament. So this year, on September 2nd, we celebrated the 60th Tibetan Democracy Day. So it's been 60 years since Tibetans have been bestowed with democracy in exile. That is a new form of government that we in Tibet had never experienced. So the blessing in disguise of coming in exile has been democracy. And I believe that one of the vision of our leadership, His Holiness Dalai Lama, and the youth of Tibet, particularly around the world, is to see a free and democratic Tibet. And with that, celebrate a strong and equal relationship with our neighbors. So this is what I believe is our vision as leaders. And to get back to your question, I am a member of the 16th member of Tibetan Parliament in Exile. So we are all directly elected by the people. They were the faces when His Holiness Dalai Lama directly nominated his member. And in fact, my late father was 3 times directly nominated by His Holiness as a member of Parliament. But currently that position has been dissolved. Especially in 2011, when His Holiness Dalai Lama entirely gave away his political power. And when Sandor Rinpoche was there, Sandeep ji, your friend, His Holiness was partially the political leader, but now from 2011, His Holiness completely dissolved his political power, and he in fact, made sure that even when the Tibetans were like, no, this is something that we don't want you to do, His Holiness, in fact, like forced us to adopt it and embrace democracy. And I think this is the only form of community where we have been, democracy had been forced upon us, So I think this is the magic of Tibetan exile democracy. And the new generation like us, we are determined that we take this responsibility very seriously. We believe that His Holiness has taken a lot of faith in us as future seats of Tibet, who will make sure that, we will take the fate of Tibet to a right direction, and we are doing everything we can to make sure that he's not disappointed on us.
Okay. So you mean to say that 1 lakh Tibetans living in India elect the MPs?
Yes, I think our form of members of parliament will be very interesting, because it's based on Tibet, the map that Tenzin Tsundue showed you earlier. According to the 3 traditional provinces, we are elected. So I'm from Central Tibet, Yuzhang. So Tibetans in India, Nepal, and Bhutan who are from Central Tibet, they can vote for me. So they can elect 10 of us. So each traditional province of Tibet can elect 10 of us. And then the 4 different sects of Buddhism, there are 2 representatives, that makes it 8. And then 2 traditional religion of Tibet, that is Pön, they have 2 representatives. So that makes it 40. And then we have 2 from North and South America, and 2 from Europe, and 1 from Australasia. So that makes it 45 of us. So we are directly elected by the people.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So if anybody else has a question, they can put forward the question.
हाँ संदीप जी, एक बात और जोड़ देता हूँ जो नमग्याल डोलकर अभी बात किया है ना उसके ऊपर. We have this election that happens once in 5 years. And every time when we have this election, because we are not physically based in one place or country, because 150,000 Tibetans today are mostly in India, Nepal, Bhutan, and then in Europe and America and Australia and Japan and so many countries. So on one set day, the votings would start from Australia in the furthest, and as the sun moves to the west, from there to Singapore, to Bhutan, Nepal, India, then over to west and up to Alaska, on a period of 24 hours, our elections would have then happened in almost about 40 different countries. And out of 150,000 Tibetans, we usually have online 80 to 90,000 Tibetans taking part in this once in 5 years, and we elect the president of the Tibetan entire Tibetan community and 45 members of parliament. And now we are in an exciting moment. We are now moving towards the next election, which may happen in February or March. So we have prelims where we nominate, and once the candidates are ready, the finals would happen 1 month after the prelims. And we have only one house in the parliament. It's not double layered, it's single house, and it's not a multi-party. Partyless, single house parliament. So the parliament confronts the administration on administrative activities, but the members of parliament are questioned by the people. So it's a very unique form of a democracy that we've been experimenting, and we're doing quite well up until today.
So far, yes.
This election happens online? It happens online?
It's ballot, so
today. Maybe in future maybe COVID-19 may actually force us to vote online. We don't know, but we'll see.
But otherwise, it is postal ballot.
Yes.
Okay.
We still have the ballot boxes where you have to go fill the names of your nomination, put it in the ballot box. So it's good old traditional way.
Okay. If there is any other question, Ankit, you can take it. Otherwise, I have one last question. If there is any other question, give priority to that. Otherwise,
we have one question. We have one question from a Facebook viewer, Mr. Somyajit Bhaduri. He has asked this question, like, when can we see more of the free Tibet concerts again, like the one that used to happen before?
अच्छा,
do you want to go?
ये फ्री टिबेट कॉन्सर्ट्स की बात कर रहे हैं ना. Tibetans have actually excelled in using culture in propagating, promoting the issue of Tibet. Not just concerts, but even dance, music CDs, and most importantly, His Holiness the Dalai Lama's teachings. All of this is so popularized, and hundreds of people from so many different parts of the world, they join here. And concerts has been an interesting discourse, bringing people together and spreading the message of love and peace and compassion and the idea of freedom. In India also, we have done so many. But in the recent times, I think there was kind of a slackening of that kind of activities. But I'm sure as there is more interest now, that is already rising. In India, there is a new interest about Tibet. People want to know, and music and concerts are most effective ways of bringing people together and also propagating. But so I'm sure in future, once the COVID-19 ये जो डर जो है वो हट जाएंगे, तो बहुत सारे लोग आएंगे और तिब्बत के बारे में बात करेंगे, म्यूजिक करेंगे, और इंडियन फिल्म स्टार्स भी आएंगे, तिब्बत के बारे में बात करेंगे, और इंडिया में वही एक सपोर्ट जुड़ जाएंगे तिब्बत के लिए.
Okay. Thank you, Tenzin Ji. So I think soon we will have these sessions, these concerts, and hopefully it will involve not only the people but also the influential personalities. And Tenzin Ji, I have one question. Can you please explain the flag of Tibet? If I'm not wrong, there's a flag behind you.
Yeah. अच्छा, so ये तिब्बत के झंडा मेरे पीछे हैं यहाँ. I'll move my chair a little bit. Yes, so you can see the Tibetan national flag here. This is a national flag that was in existence from 1916 onwards. 1916 जो कि फर्स्ट वर्ल्ड वॉर के बीच में ये डिजाइन किए गए थे 13th दलाई लामा ने. अभी का दलाई लामा जो है वो 14th है. 13th दलाई लामा ने ये डिजाइन किया 1916 को, और 1916 वो वक्त है जब पूरी दुनिया में से आज 206 अलग आजाद देश माने जाते हैं. उनमें से आधा से लोग कब्जे में थे, यूरोपियन कब्जे में थे. तब वो आजाद नहीं थे, तब हमारा देश आजाद था, और ये तिब्बत की झंडा जो है वो बनी. उसमें इंटरेस्टिंग बात ये है कि this is a national flag which represents Tibet as a country would had thousands of years of independence. So you see right in the center the white triangle, it looks like a snow mountain. So it represents the general geography of Tibet as snow mountains. In front of the snow mountain, there are two snow lions. These are snow lions, a mythical animal. Tibetans believe the purest of hearts can see snow lions in the snow mountains. So there are two snow lions. They represent the political aspects of the Tibetan government that uphold the spirit of Tibet, which is there in the form of the flaming gem, wish-fulfilling gem right in the center. Above that is the sun, which is the spirit of Tibet, the glorious spirit of Tibet. And then we see two pairs of six broad lines in red and blue. The two colors represent the two state oracles. Tibetans believe that there are oracles that protect the Tibetan nation. Nejung Choge and Pandey Lama, two oracles who protect the Tibetan nation. Now there are six because people believe that the first progeny, the beginning of the first Tibetan population They were the descendants of the two Tibetan parents, a monkey and an ogress. So in the Tibetan narrative, I think this is this one narrative of the origination of the people that is closest to science. Tibetans believe that we are originally monkeys, the descendants, the children between a monkey and an ogress, and therefore they were originally 6 children who are then represented in the 6 strands of different colors. Now, for me personally, the most important and most beautiful sign that we see on the national flag is the yellow borders. You see the yellow border, but it's not on all 4 sides. It's only on 3 sides. It's on 3 sides because Tibetans believe that we are so very proud of our Buddhist culture and the snow mountain heritage. The Tibetans are so very proud of this. And we believe that that spirit has spread around our world. And yet we have kept one side open here. One side open because this symbolizes our aspiration to say that although we are proud of our religion and culture, yet we are willing to learn new ideas and science and new cultures from other people. So the willingness, the humility that is represented here is so very amazing in this idea of Tibetan nationalism. So this is the Tibetan national flag that is right behind me and also behind Namgyal Dolkar. Okay, any other question?
Yeah, thank you, Tenzin. That was indeed a beautiful explanation. So we are running out of time. Dr. Sandeep, if you have any last question or comments, and then we can conclude the session. Yeah.
Yeah.
Dr. Sandeep Pandey, you
What
are
happened?
inaudible.
Yeah, I think
I can hear you. Yeah, tell me.
Since it is already about 1 hour, I think we can close.
Okay. So it was indeed.
Yeah, thank you, Tenzin and Namgyal. Thank you very much for sharing your
Thank you.
thoughts
Thank you.
and emotions with us. Thank you.
संदीप जी
Thank you for having us.
ये बहुत ही अच्छा वेबिनार रहा और हमारा हम अपने बातें यहाँ रख पाए और आप भी साथ में जुड़े, आपने प्रश्न भी पूछा, तो बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद। संदीप जी, आपका सपोर्ट तिब्बत के लिए है वो हमेशा हम मानते हैं और आगे और भी ज्यादा काम करना है क्योंकि अब तो तिब्बत को आजाद भी कराना है।
बिल्कुल बिल्कुल, और हमारी सोशलिस्ट पार्टी इंडिया आपका साथ देगी इस आजादी की लड़ाई में।
धन्यवाद।
आपका पार्टी शायद मात्र एक पॉलिटिकल पार्टी है जो पहली बार खुल के बोल रहे हैं हम तिब्बत की आजादी की मांग को सपोर्ट करते हैं।
जी नहीं, मैं
और मेरा उम्मीद है कि और भी पॉलिटिकल पार्टीज पे ज्वाइन हो जाएं, ये बीजेपी, ये कांग्रेस, जनता दल, सब लोग जुड़ जाएं और तिब्बत को आजाद करें और भारत भी सुरक्षित रहेंगे।
बिल्कुल राइट, ठीक है, नमस्कार।
Thank you, Sandeep ji, for having us here. Thank you.